That's the ever returning recurring question in prediction markets, but very good nonetheless.
One of the biggest problems with prediction markets in, I mean, if we're thinking about prediction markets as an field with having decentralization in mind, I mean, which is one of the most from crypto. So thinking about user-generated prediction markets, which we are building at Groovy, the biggest challenge for anyone who's doing that is the initial liquidity for prediction market. And I know you both guys have different takes on how to solve this liquidity problem. So I would like to hear from you. I mean, is this liquidity the biggest problem or the biggest challenge with prediction markets? And also, how do we solve this liquidity problem with prediction markets?
That's the ever returning recurring question in prediction markets, but very good nonetheless. So indeed, liquidity is a big issue, and it's one of the biggest kind of trust factors that people should take into consideration, of course, when building it. These long tail markets, very short term markets. Now liquidity becomes a real issue, right? Because it's way more difficult, even especially if you do permissionless markets, right? How are you going to convince a liquidity provider to be on call, ad hoc, on demand, whenever a random user, arbitrary background creates a new market, right? With very little time to do research before, in which tranches, in the case of a club, right? Central limit order book or a CPAM, where you need a very stable and high amount of A and B tokens, right? For there to be minimum slippage, minimum loss, and liquidity providers to make a little profit, right? Impossible. It is actually impossible. So unless you truly re-engineer, you go back to AAM school or whatever you may be closest to, and you create a good, sound, and correct market maker that adapts to these facts. I really find it's going to be a very big challenge to reach that public, especially to offer that user experience, saying that you're a prediction market seeking the truth with this liquidity problem. So unless you innovate on that front, it's going to be almost impossible, I would say, to get outside of the shadow of Polymarket or Kalshi, who've done an amazing job in PMF right in these markets.